Into our final game of the day, Dusty versus Munster Rugby Gaming. And this is important on both ends of the spectrum. Dusty are fighting for their playoff spots, and Munster are actually fighting for seeding. They are not completely safe, locked into a second seed, for instance. So actually a pretty important game for both of these teams.
Every game matters. That has been the name of the day all day. But yes, obviously it's Dusty who are fighting for their lives, whereas Munster a bit more for the seeding and a bit more for pride. But it also then does feel like a very scary matchup here with how dominant and vicious and volatile Munster's games could be. If I'm Dusty, I'm like, this is my must-win game, and it's against Munster Rugby Gaming. I'm like, oh no, that's disaster.
So the thing here is that when we talk about Munster, I have so many question mark pings around my head, because if I tell you the players that are in this team, if I tell you that Maxla is in the jungle, you know, they have the veteran, they've got the polished mid laner, they've got Sebix, the Annie prodigy who can play so many other picks we can shine on. Everywhere you take this team from top to bottom, they're like all superstars. And then there's so many question marks, as in, how do they want to play? We've talked to their coach, and the plan is pretty simple, right? They want to play a really aggressive early game, choke out their opponents completely, remove all of their resources, and then win by 20 minutes where they have like a 10k plus lead. I understand. The problem here is this was sort of the game that Fnatic and the LEC wanted to play until they realized that they no longer have to. And I feel like with the caliber of players that Munster has in their hands, they can play any type of game they want, because Maxla knows how to lead the team, and then the rest of the team can adapt around that.
And it's just as you said, I'm honestly a bit sad that they're just going on for this complete early game stomp every time. I just want to see one game where we're like, okay, we're actually having a pretty selfless Maxlaw who's got good ganking pattern, who's going to help out his laners, set him up for the late game. But that's never just what we see. It's a coin flip. And we died level 1. All right, so that's usually how it goes with the Munster Rugby Gaming. It's already decided by that point into the game. And that's what I don't really like about them. You can flip the page over to Dusty too, because we got difficulties with them too. You can say that individually, both Chelm and Legion really stepped up here lately, but they still have the same issues, which to me is that they like playing a really complicated style. And I don't like that complicated style, because often we see that the laners are still struggling with the fundamentals.
And for me, it's not necessarily the fact that Dusty hasn't found their style. Sure, I agree with that point as well, because they haven't necessarily gelled together for me. They just rely so much on their individual performance on the day. Is Legion's gonna be strong that day? Is Chilm gonna outplay everyone? Is it gonna happen combined one with the other, or is one person trying to carry the whole team? So for me, Dusty's relying too much on that one person, or maybe two on the day popping off, rather than rounding up their game.
I think that's just what's really scary when you're facing a team like Munster, is that it almost sets you up stylistically for exactly where that team wants to go. Like, they want to fight you. They want to be that early game aggressive team. And I think that Dusty are a team that will kind of, like, we always use in the LEC that if like G2, if a team smiles at G2, G2 will smile back. They're like, let's fight over Scuttlecrab and just 5-man teleport, because whatever. Like, that seems like this could happen here, that you could either have an extremely bloody game, or you just have a game where Munster just completely runs away with it.
And I think a lot of this comes down to drafting as well. I mean, and specifically Gulborg said, drafts from Dusty have been some of the most complex and hardest to execute that we've had in this competition. I think a lot of that comes from, from the kind of the theory crafting that goes into their comps. They are kind of one of the teams that kind of is willing to test things out. But the time for testing is done. This is not the time to test anymore for Dusty. This is the time to put up and shut up and get the results. And they need to get this win versus Munster. But otherwise, playoffs is hanging in the balance and may even be gone for them if they end up losing here. So, guys, we are going to a quick break. When we're back, we are going to have our final draft of the night, Munster versus Dusty.
is paradise. This is paradise. I will find it's got me feeling like nothing gonna stop us now, nothing gonna break us down.
Ain't I mistaken? I've been here before. All my body is aching, shaking to the core. Wherever you go is a heaven, 7/24. Now don't go be misbehaving, but I'm craving a little more. Can't keep my thoughts inside, don't want no place to hide. Can't get you off my mind, all night and day. You always played it cool, oh, but I ain't no fool. I know you feel it too.
Final draft of the day are ready to go. An important game for Dusty, but, equally as important for Munster too. Dusty on blue side, immediate Carthus ban, and now Munster will be choosing to respond.
And I really want to see the priority for these two teams. These two teams. That was hard for me, because we talked about it. They don't have the same priorities as the rest of the league. They got something different up their sleeve. They want something their way. So I think I'm just going to lean myself back here and just enjoy this show from draft.
And you can already see some of that specifics targeting out, and the fact that Syndra has finally hit the bans. She's pretty much slipped through every single draft today already, but because it's Senkux on the other side, Dusty obviously giving a lot of Sebex. Them giving a lot of respect. Do you think they'll also ban the Annie?
No.
Don't see it, but I mean, it might still come out. That is one scary child.
Oh, Sona. Oh, no.
I think the Annie comes out to pull them out of a sticky situation, or where he's feeling extremely confident that day he can't carry like he did the last time. So until he sees the very dim lights coming out from Munster, I don't think he's going to be pulling it out.
I think that Sona ban is very intelligent, because I think if one team was going to bring out the Sona locks, it was by all means going to be Dusty, because they're the kind of team to bring in those new theory crafting. They'll have also, talked about a lot of Gary and Yumi trying to bring that back with the new Knight's Vow, how it works with movement speed on top of the Yumi. But let's talk about that if that does get locked in.
Yeah, so finally with that Sona being banned, it does mean that Volibear slips through. Volley getting instantly locked in is such a powerful jungle. I think that immediately means that Munster need to pivot to an Ezreal. Now, Twisted Fate is still available and obviously is very powerful, but running TF into a Volibear is just a nightmare in the lane phase. Volley can show up and basically just chunk you for 80% of your HP, which is why I feel like you probably need an Azir here, because you just need something safe that can get away from this guy when he just sprints into your lane and slaps you.
At the same time too, right? Yeah. Oh, what the? Okay, there's still... Okay, Third is actually banned, so that is out of there, but you could go with Janna if you want to bring that back up into the kind of just safe bot lane with it. But what I'm also worried about is that if Dusty gets the Volibear Twisted Faith comp, yeah, you can be punished by blind pick and Twisted Faith, but that is so easy to execute dives with that composition. No way they just did that.
So the nice thing about Vayne into Alistar is she's one of the few AD carries that will still have a lot of kill pressure on him, and it's really hard for Ali to lock down a Vayne if she's good with her tumble and her condemn. Obviously then Lulu and Vayne, that makes perfect sense. A champion that excels off of attack speed is given free attack speed, but also I just think that Whimsy is probably one of the most broken, if not powered abilities in the game, especially if you chain it with exhaust. If you exhaust directly into a Whimsy, you just deny someone doing damage forever. And there's Azir. So
that's Azir. That is a blind pick Azir. Obviously, as we said, it's one of those picks that a couple of mid laners have gone for in a blind situation here. Maybe just valuing the priority that they can get from lane. You mentioned it earlier.
You're definitely not picking anything low mobility as soon as a volley bear is there. You're like, I'm not dealing with this. This is not fun. I would have to take cleanse. No. Ezreal is...
But already like what we're seeing here, this is a good composition for having a beefy front line with the Alistar. You have the good backline poke with an Azir, with the Ezreal, and you have already solidified as a team that wants to play on the range front here. So we're talking about a Monster Rugby Gaming who's not only going for a standard composition, but they're not opting into an early level 1, or at least not out of draft so far. They could still do something extremely creative in the early game, but so far it does not look like it with these picks.
Which is why I feel like Dusty now have to get pretty creative about how they're going to break this game. So like, while junglers are still available and Kha'Zix is also just a powerful jungle, I actually really like a Kha'Zix ban in this case, because one of the win conditions that Dusty could have here is if Vayne gets really strong and playing her in a side lane, not playing in a traditional front-to-back team fight or 5v5ing around Drakes. Now, that said, I don't know if that's the best way to try to win the game, but because you have Ezreal and Azir who are going to be able to hit this Vayne before Vayne can have any sort of pressure on them, they need something to work around. So by banning away a Kha'Zix, who often works as a swinging out into those side lanes and assassinating, I think it empowers and emboldens a Vayne that if a snowball does happen, that she can play in that side lane and at least offer Dusty something on this map.
Talking about Snowball, I do believe that Munster will want to play through a lane. There's no way this team that wanted to play the extremely early game, the level 1 dives, the level 5 fights, are not going to pick an early game winning situation. I'm expecting Maxla on possibly even something like the Lee Sin, since his Kha'Zix has been banned out, the Talia been locked in. I'm expecting to see something extremely aggressive and AD up the top lane for Shikari.
It has to be, because otherwise they've got way too much magic damage.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I was like, okay, now you got a good backline damage. We can get a good frontline in there if you want to, and it's starting to look really clean. And then boom, Talia out of nowhere. But I mean, they must have one idea with it. I hope so. You can set it up with the CFC from Alistar with the knockup. But also at the same time, I'm looking at Dusty right here. Oh God, that's a Kassadin coming in here. I want frontline. I want one extra frontliner here. Just blind pick that on if you need to. You already have the Volibear, you have Kassadin, and you got the backline with Lulu Vayne. Just do something that could keep you in this game where you have a nice juicy frontliner, because Shikari is going to want to punish you anyway, so make it easier for yourself.
Okay, so we are playing side lane. They want to play side lane on Vayne, Kassadin, and then they put the Shin on top of it. You can't lock in that Kinnan. You have way too much magic damage. Don't do that, Rugby. Put it away. You're going to play an 80 top laner, but the issue is that you don't have any hard engage because you picked Alistar instead of something like, I don't know, a Leona or a Nautilus, but like, I guess he can maybe punt away the volley. Maybe that's the thought process. I
mean, I actually really like the Shen pick coming in here with the 131 you can experiment with, but also but how the survivability coming through here. And as you said, there's only 80 champions available for Shikari, and a lot of the 80 champions are extremely auto attack reliant, funnily enough. So what do we have here? Well, we have a Shen who's got a Spirit Guard, who's got a passive shield buff. This is actually a nice draft coming in from Dusty too.
I'm going to have to say that I do believe that even though, yes, overall the composition looks fantastic, even though the Vayne should never die, the Kassadin should scale later into the game, all I see is priority possibly all over the map except bot lane for the side of Munster. I feel like the Camille will be able to play aggressive towards the Shen. The Azir should have priority in the early game as well. So again, I'm seeing Maxwell potentially trying to choke down that Shen and take everything from the top lane.
I do want to make it clear, though, that while Munster do have scaling potential on their composition, they still spike really hard on 2 items. You know, this isn't just champions that need 3 or 4 items to be successful. So Munster are still in perfect alignment that at 2 items, if they want to win a game by 20 minutes, they can do it with these champions. These champions just also happen to scale very hard.
Yeah, but then you look at the scaling on Dusty's side. I'm looking. You know, if someone drafted that for me, like, you know, minus the volley bear jungle, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I'm thinking like 35 minutes plus that game's won. You know, like, reminds me of like an old CLG EU composition. They just
I
picked
thought you
it
were
and
going
then
to say
just got.
LCK.
Yeah, no, that's also good. I was thinking like the 40-minute CLG EU games that we used to see, where they were just like, get a 40 minutes and we just automatically win. Guys, it's going to be a fun game. We expect Dusty to bring out something wild, and so we're going to throw it over to Hitbrain and Ox to guide us through our final game of the night.
All right, we're getting ready to go into our 4th and final game, Dusty versus Munster. Orcs, let's have a little bit of a chat about this. So Dusty, famous for picking hard to execute team comps. Munster have been also a little bit kind of different from what we've been seeing in the league so far. I think we got a little bit of that from both of these teams. They've got the Vayne here. Jack Spector taking the Ghost as well, so looking to really kite on the edge of the fight. What are you making of this, Orcs?
I think there's going to be a little bit of difficulty dealing with the range advantage on the likes of Sebex and Unforgiven. Ezreal Azir's been a really powerful combo to go together, just because a lot of compositions aren't going to get in range of that. I know champions like Aphelios can struggle up against that, but Dusty essentially, I feel like the direction with this draft that they've said, look, Munster often like to lean into early pressure. We think they're rubbish at it, and we're going to call them out on it, because if Munster do botch that early, if they botch the mid game, if they don't get a sizable lead, there's going to be problems. There's going to be an issue potentially dealing with some of these incredibly strong scaling champions. And as much as the Azir Ezreal can normally play around that range, there comes a point where Jack Spector with Ghost and Legions, you know, on the casting with the Rift Walk, can just chase them down. I feel like Munster, of all the games, they need a strong early pressure in this one, because Dusty have essentially said, we're confident you can't punish us. And they have a couple of tools that can negate some of the pressure, that being the Shen and the Volibear. Obviously, Volibear good in skirmishes. Shen has that ult. But the bot side of the map is really just playing to play defensive.
All right, well, Fiddle, just going to place a ward down. I thought he was just going to go the very greedy way to lane for some reason. Decides not to. And my eyes for this early game is going to be more focused on this top side. I think we might see a little bit of action there. It could potentially be quite explosive. But if the junglers did start out on the top side, so maybe looking for an early gank, we'll have to see if they want to go for that. Although Chelm is clearing downwards now, so it looks like he's probably not going to make an appearance up in the top lane. Not anytime soon anyway. I think Eva getting pretty heavily bullied out. This is kind of the Alistair thing, is you're not really a champion until level 2. Once you've got the combo, feel a little bit more strong, but at the moment just getting poked and bullied out by the double range.
Saying that, we saw the level 2 advantage for Unforgiven and Eva, so they got the push there despite the fact that Jack Spector and Fiddle could contest it. And this suggests to me that Jack Spector and Fiddle, again, what I was saying, they don't want to fight early. They don't want to have a big scrap in the early levels. They're happy just to try and farm up.
Equal in CS though, at the moment, bot side. Eva now sitting in the bush. I'm assuming it's probably the Hex Flash on Eva. That's what we've seen quite a lot from Alistair's when they used to show up.
Yeah, so
similar to the set, you can kind of flash out of the bush and get a combo off.
I did see one recently, and it's not only the Hex Flash, but you have Nimbus Cloak and Phase Rush. So after your combo, you're very quickly able to get the Phase Rush to follow up on the passive auto. Because that is often one of the biggest issues with Alistair's. It's very easy to get the combo off in the right scenarios. Obviously against Vayne a bit trickier, but then it's staying on top of them to get that empowered auto. And Phase Rush just kind of facilitates you to do that.
But like I said, pretty much what we predicted. Pretty reserved bot lane from Jack Spector and Fiddle. They're okay just to farm up as much as possible. Maxlor is going to get a double crab start though. Chelm not able to actually answer out on that. Chelm has done a full clear of his jungle, but it's going to lose out to Maxlor there.
I think it's the right call because ultimately you know that you're not going to have a...
Oh my
You're not going to have the support from your laners. All 3 lanes have priority for Munster. And so I think going for the contestation there is dangerous. And we're just going to see Chilm going for full clears in this scenario. Again, they're looking to play slow. Bot lane, there was a nice trade in the 2v2. Heaver unable to get on top of anyone. And it means that now they can potentially push the wave in and have it bounce. But
Maybe looking for a lane gank.
Yeah, first amount of presence on Shikari. A good taunt is needed for the setup here.
Oh, beautiful. I thought he got into the bush in that time. Looks like he will now. Coincidence? Holding that taunt for the moment, waiting for the opportune moment to catch out to Shikari. Shikari, maybe smelling something's up here. Coincidence goes in with the taunt, misses out, and Shikari hook shots away.
It's a little bit short on that one, ultimately, and not a ton lost other than the time, but you're able to crash the wave here, so now Coincidence can go for a reset, pick up some items. He's in a decent spot. We did see Shikari get a pretty significant CS lead. Obviously, he's only 5 at the moment, but he's got a big wave crashing. And I think just, honestly, Coincidence looked a little bit off so far on this Shen. Missing this taunt, and we saw one earlier that he didn't connect. Losing trades a bit with Shikari. Not a great start overall, but ultimately, you are just playing Shen mostly for the team. But being able to hold your own in the 1v matchup is a critical factor too. Camille being very auto-attack based means he normally actually does all right. And he actually has quite a bit of damage in the early trades, but is now a fair chunk behind. Bot lane's going fine for Dusty. Mid lane is going pretty good considering it's an Azir into a cast-in. Being this close to CS, you'll take. And jungle, Maxwell is pulling a little bit ahead so far.
Although I feel like this is okay for Dusty. They've not really... They're 400 gold down. There is a big discrepancy in the top side. But outside of that, everyone else is quite happily just farming up the Kassadin and the Vayne who do want to get some time, get some levels, and obviously those items are okay just sitting back for the moment. So Dragon hasn't been picked up yet. It is 6 minutes, so not an overly early Dragon, although Maxwell will get spotted out, and now potentially going to get chased down. There's a lot of movement speed coming in from Fiddle as the splash comes in from Chell. Maxwell's going low, and that's first blood. Picked up onto the Vayne. Jack Spectre has shields to work with and is able to get out. So 1 for 1. But crucially, Jack Spectre finds first blood and has a big wave to collect as well.
Yeah, I mean, you're fine with that from the side of Dusty. The only downside is you trade a bit heavier in summoners with Jack Spectre's flash being down. Quite valuable compared to Heaver who has the Hex Flash. But ultimately, you got the kill onto the Vayne. Great. You trade 1 for 1 when you're happy to scale late into the game. You're fine in this situation. Even get a blue buff on the Vayne, spam those condemned. So you'll take that one in that situation.
Also, slows down a potential early Dragon as well as Maxwell got killed. Looks like they are going to rotate towards that now, though. Forgiven has to be careful, taking so much damage from Jack Spectre. Half his health bar's burnt through. Has got the Honey Fruit to heal back up, and Munster are going to pick up this Mountain Drake to start the game off, but I think Dusty are happy with the current state of how everything's gone.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't going to contest this one. It's the right decision. And ultimately, that fight, as you said, it did delay it. 7 minute 15 Drake isn't exactly early. Does push back the soul a little bit, but seeing that Cloud Drake up next means that it is going to be one of the 2 arguably most powerful souls. It's either going to be an Infernal or an Ocean. Both would be devastating for the side who obviously hands it over to the other team. Does mean that Dusty will likely have to contest that 3rd Dragon, but especially that 4th. Did for how powerful those souls will be.
Did we highlight Jack Spectre starting with a Cole?
He didn't, but it just
He
plays
is
into what we're
almost
talking
stacked
about.
it as well. That is very much him going, I do not want to interact in lane. I just want to farm
But I
up.
think it's they picked this because specifically the enemy team goes Ezreal, Alistair. You're like, okay, so no threat really level 1. We're happy to chill. We're happy to control the wave as we see fit, which they did. They've decided they wanted to be pushed into. And the kill pressure is very low, in all honesty, between these 2 champions. Unless you make a massive mistake, you should be able to handle it. So I think, honestly, Munster's early rotation on the Ezreal Alistair was very greedy. And Dusty's response has given them a favorable situation. They did lean into that quite heavily with the cast in mid, which is, to be honest, a bit less agency than I typically like early. But ultimately, it does mean when they get to those later stages, they're feeling confident. And Legions, he's had a final time. He's a little bit down in farm, but he's hit that level 6 point pretty much unchecked.
Maxwell spotted out by the Scuttle Crab, looking to set up for the Rift Herald. It's just going to start it up solo. Heaver's rotated over as well. This should just be a freebie for Munster. So Wave's going to get pushed in on the bot side, and Unforgiven isn't here to back it up, as they know that Munster are pretty much aware that they can go for this, but Unforgiven could be in for a little bit of hurt. Chelm has the Stormbringer to cancel out the tower if he needs to, gets himself the stun off of the Thundering Smite. And Jack Spectre gets his second kill, teleport coming in, and Shikari tries to make his way forward. They have the Shen ultimate onto Jack Spectre. There's the Hextech ultimatum as the Wild Growth gets used onto Chelm, and Shikari just has to hook shot away to safety. Chelm's alive. Beautifully executed by Dusty bot side.
A lot committed to only get the one kill, but they get the kill and get out. It's another one of the Vayne, and a lot of
true shot.
missed there. Not enough. It does chunk Jack Spectre out. This gives a lot of control over the Munster, so potentially they can look to take a plate in this situation on the bot side, but ultimately they get the kill, they deny farm from Unforgiven. Dusty are happy with this one. It was a strong execution, and although, again, they committed a lot to get out of that one and didn't get another kill, they'll still take it. But it is a plate sacrifice in this situation.
Maybe a little bit more of a plate. I feel like Munster do want to get at least 2 plates here, but they're not going to get it.
Not quite.
Considering they committed Shikari's teleport and didn't get anything but a plate for that, and they lost a member to the Vayne, I think Munster looking a little bit lost there. And one of the things I wanted to highlight as well for me was Jack Spectre and Fiddle have struggled. I think that's a fair assessment to make. And this is a much better performance by them. Jack's going to get sped up as he actually pops the Ghost. He's looking for Shikari here. Gets swept back, and Shikari has to flash. Weaver's wall gets used, and now Maxfloor, he's put himself on the other side of the wall as Heaver's going to get caught out by Chelm. The Condemned's not going to quite land. A great taunt comes in by coincidence. Shikari gets taken out by Chelm, and now down goes Maxfloor. Fiddle secures the kill. Dusty find 2.
Oh, I was criticizing Quinstance earlier, but that was really beautifully executed there to find that taunt on a 2. More kills in the Vayne's pocket. Well, in that case, getting the assist, but ultimately just more gold going towards Dusty. Unforgiven is getting some pressure on the top side, but Shen happy to TP up there. He knows Shikari doesn't have his, and Stand United's coming up soon, so we'll shut down the push. And again, this is Dusty playing really effectively around that global and as a team. You can see Maxwell comes in, seems a little bit caught out, and just watch Quinstance on this beautiful 2-man taunt. The follow-up is instantly there. Jack Spectre nicely playing away from the one-shot potential of Maxwell. If the seismic shove hits, you will just go down there. But it's really well executed, in all honesty. And a bit naive from Munster to opt into that one. I saw the ult coming down from Maxwell, and I'm like, really, what are you going to do in this situation? The answer is die.
Yeah. We expected early action coming into this game, but we didn't expect Dusty to be the ones, especially from the composition they drafted, to be the ones actually capitalizing on that early action. Even Maxwell maybe looking out for Legions. Do get him back with a seismic shove. Legions just gets bopped around, and Arcane shift away. Sevex sends the Stand Soldiers over the wall, but not really able to get too much off that. Jack Spectre just about to pop that cull as well. Got the buildings of the Blade of the Ruined King, and that should be finished up somewhat soon as Cloud Drake takes to the Rift, and Legion's chunked. So Munster should be able to get this second Drake, although Chelm is rotating down with the backup. They've used the Rift Herald here to pressure out onto the bot lane, and looks like the pincer's getting snapped onto Munster. Chelm's just going to be the one to tank it up, but has the shields as Heaver will get stunned up for the moment. Throws down the shield from the Sky Splitter. The True Shot Barrage will connect, and Legions comes in. Jack looks to tidy this one up. Legions is able to secure the kill. A great condemn into taunt as it's a double kill onto the Cassidin. The Scalers are getting gold, and they should get themselves an early dragon as well.
And the City Dragon really puts a thorn on the side of Munster. That Soul win condition is now being delayed by 5 minutes. Yes, Shikari's picking up farm in the side lane. Just beautifully executed there by Dusty. Munster overcommit for the tower, and they end up losing a ton in return. 2 kills on the Cassidin really hurts right now. And Dusty, we said they were looking to step back and scale up in the lanes. They haven't needed to. They've been able to find numbers advantages. You can see here, good play from Chelm, just trying to stall and not engage too heavily. Beheaver ultimately is going to go down, and a beautiful flash condemn from Jack Spectre just to execute. They know they have the numbers, they know they have the strength, and ultimately they're not scared. They're not really worried about the damage potential from Munster because it's not there right now. They need Unforgiven to hit that 2-item spike. They need Sebex to get a bit more as well, similar spikes. Right now, they just can't really contest Dusty, who have, you know, Quinstance and Chelm, who are really strong right now, but also Jack Spectre already being buffed up by the Lulu, just puts them in a comfortable spot. And you can see from the goal differences, yes, top and jungle are ahead on Munster by a little bit. There's a 1k gold lead for Jack Spectre. Only 300 for Legions, but any lead on a Casted is a great time.
Yeah, absolutely. And Legion's actually teleported up to the top lane to deny Shikari from picking any extra plates up in that lane as well. So actually slowing him down. It looks like they have rotated the members over. Jack Spectre has to be a little careful. Hasn't got his Lulu about. No ultimate onto Coincidence. And Jack really doesn't want to step up without Lulu in his pocket. Has got Chelm just about behind him, but this is scary. Jack's going to step up and be able to clear out the wave. The hookshot instantly comes in. Lulu's too far away. That was just a little bit too greedy. 4 members looking to dive in on this bot lane, on this top lane. Chelm's now the one who's probably going to get himself caught out here. Gets the killing smite off to Shikari, but the hookshot's going to connect, and Chelm caught in the Hextech ultimatum, bopped out as well. Shield's not going to be enough. Really, really solid turnaround for Munster just to find that 2 kills.
Good capitalization, also going when Shen's Stand United isn't available, neither is the TP. And you obviously saw that Legion's TP was down as well. I think Jack Spectre just stepped up too soon. You need to wait longer for Chilm and Fiddle to be there to contest that. And just ends up getting 100-0. Not really too much counterplay in that situation where you have the chain CC and the damage coming through. But potentially if Fiddle was closer, if Chilm was closer, they could have CC'd Max Law to stop the chain CC going through. Do you see Jack Spectre going for a little bit of a freeze in the top lane, just trying to, again, keep the pace of the game as slow as possible? I think realizing that this is not going to hold as a freeze and just going to have to touch it out.
If a Hex flashes over the wall, though, he was spotted out on a ward, so Legions is well aware of that going down. There's now these 2 turrets that have been taken. Munster are slowly starting to ramp up the pace a little bit. Maxlaw maybe looking for a little something onto Fiddle and Jack Spectre, but Chelm is waiting in the wings. They've constantly got a bear in their pocket. Rift Herald spawned up, and it looks like Munster are going to try and crack open the mid lane. Their 3rd and final turret out of these altars to take, if they can here. Coincidence does now have that Stand United available. Legion's got level 2 on the Riftwalk.
But I think this is the point where Munster can look to accelerate the pace of the game. They're getting towards their strong spikes. They're looking to get this Herald. Legion's looking to step up and challenge Max. He gets chunked out by Unforgiven.
Yeah, and Heaver's actually coming in, just going to get bopped up by the headbutt pulverized. The Stand United gets used, and now Legion's delivering a Shen onto Heaver. Heaver gets chunked out, and Maxlaw taken out. Jack Spectre finds an easy kill. Rift Herald is dissuaded, and Dusty get the kills.
What was that from Maxlaw? Ult straight into 4 people, and then wall bangs with the flash. I am speechless.
It was sloppy.
No, there's sloppy and there's just awful. That was really...
Sloppy's my optimistic way to say it. That was, yeah. Sloppy.
See, Dusty now feeling confident. No jungler up, but...
Yeah, Shikari is coming in. Very, very low. Here comes Heaver jumping in. They try to put everything onto Jack Spectre to keep him alive. He's still going in the middle of this fight. The taunt comes in. A massive shuffle back by Sebek. But it's a double kill onto Jack Spectre. He's hunting Sebek down, looking for the kill. Can he get it? Coincidence is going to fall down. It's a triple kill onto the Azir, and Unforgiven finds himself. Oh, my lord, a quadra. Sebek comes up massive.
Carried that fight so hard right there. Honestly, Dusty, it looked like it was going pretty heavily in their favor. You saw Jack Spectre unable to be taken down with the support from the Lulu, the team following up. And ultimately, with Sebek's got to come in with this huge shuffle, the cleanup damage to make that a viable fight for Munster. 1 member again defining this roster, and we can see the replay. So initially, the engage starts to come out. The shielding, the wild growth onto Jack Spectre keeps him alive so long. He's getting the damage out, and it starts to look rough until this flash here for this huge ultimate. And Sebek just starts consistently putting out this damage. Jack Spectre tries to take him on and just can't find the answer. And inevitably, Sebek's able to clean up, even if Legions does take him down. But this is a similar situation to that Annie game we saw from Sebek, where Munster really were not having a good one, and he had to 1v9 them over the finish line.
I do worry, though, that you got a Frio casted in, a 5-2 Vayne.
With a shutdown as well, he just got from the Azir.
Yeah, Rage Blade and Blade of the Ruin King on Jack Spectre. And remember, Dusty can give this up. They got that Cloud Drake earlier on, so they don't have to contest this dragon if they want to buy a little bit more time. But it looks like they want to fight right now.
And then
Grouping up around the area. Coincidence is stepping up, gets headbutt pulled back. Jack Spectra gets the ult, the shield put onto him. Heaver just getting chunked out by Jack Spectra. Able to jump away as the wild growth is used. In comes Chelm, looking to try and finish up this dragon as Heaver has to pop a honey fruit to heal up. And Dusty, with the member down, decide to step away. Can't get the kills they need. And they may just group up here on the mid lane and try and take this turret out, but they don't really have the wave to work with.
It can be a little difficult approaching these situations because of Munster's range advantage. We talked about that at the start of the game. The Ezreal, the Azir, and even the Talia as well have a lot of zone control and a lot of safety that is hard to approach from one direction. So Dusty unable to find the approach there. Coincidence goes down essentially for free. We see Munster getting the dragon, and they're able to get the mid tower. Should be able to get the second one as well with this Herald.
Yeah, they've even got the tower put behind them from Azir. Legion's looking to shift over the wall. Sky Splitter gets used. Shikari dives into 2. Doesn't realize they were all there. Jack's able to take out the Rift Herald finally. Stand United is available to Coincidence, who's off in a side lane for the moment.
But this is good for Munster. This is what they need. They need to be finding these dragons. They need to be finding these towers and pushing on their lead. This is where they're really looking to spike. You can see Unforgiven picking up the Triforce. Once his Merman is stacked, that's a big spike for him. Sebex, he's got the Nashers. He's got the Haunting guys. They're in a pretty comfortable spot. They just need to keep the game going at their pace, keep accelerating, because if it does slow down, that's where it starts to get a little bit concerning, because I'm looking at Legions, who's closing in on a fully stacked Rower and a Seraph's Embrace. I'm looking at Jack Spectre, who's already got the Bladed Rune King and the Ginsu's, and he's going to probably be able to pick up defensive item next, like the Death's Dance, potentially the Wit's End, I think he's now going towards. So a lot of power will be coming later for Dusty, but for now, Munster are in control, and they need to keep it that way.
I'm also, though, on the side of Dusty, looking at the locked gold in these towers. Top and bot are very low and can get taken down somewhat quickly. It's only a 2,000 gold lead over to Munster currently. The Vayne is ramping up heavily in power. Like you said, Legions is closing to getting that Seraph's done. And while you can see the gold graph on your screen right now, has been a little up and down and currently in Munster's favor. Dusty do have heavy scaling with their draft here. And Munster, they need to keep this pace up, because if they let go of the tempo for even a moment and allow Jack Spectra and Legions to kind of hit their late game spikes, this game is going to feel incredibly rough. But like you said, they always still do have that range advantage to work with, which will, even as we move later into the game, will still heavily favor Munster and will be something that Dusty has to play around.
I think where it starts to get concerning for me is when Legions and Jack Spectre have their core items plus the defensive. I think that's the point where it starts to get really concerning, because not only will they be putting out tons of damage, they'll be very hard to kill. Right now, we're at the point where Unforgiven's hit his spike, Sebex also on a big spike. This is where Munster are really strong, but once Jack Spectre has picked up a third item with a lot of magic resist, Legions, potentially gets the likes of a Zhonya's or even the Banshees, that's where I'm going to be a little bit concerned the start of Munster. Now, they're actually starting the Baron up.
This is a quick Baron.
Risky,
Look how quick that Baron is going down. Coincidence has ultimate, remember that. Heaver and Unforgiven and Sebex are the ones to check. True Shot Barrage does come through as the teleport is here. Munster looking to get that flank off. Weaver's Wall gets used and Chelm has to flash away. Stormbringer gets used, but Legions looks to jump onto Maxlord to zone him out. Heaver takes so much damage from Jack Spectra, as Fiddle was zoned away from the team. At the end of the day, Baron is thwarted, but Dusty do bait them out and use the Weaver's Wall and the True Shot Barrage.
And the critical thing is a teleport from Shikari. That was the game plan there. That approach was risky. It was dangerous. You don't want to finish the Baron because Munster are going to call you on it, and they will probably win in that fight when you're trapped in the pit. But they wanted the TP from Shikari. That was the threat. That was the concern. It's now down. You have Coincidence with his TP, and you have him with the Stand United. And as a result, Munster aren't going to put Shikari bot lane. Instead, they're going to put Sebex. Sebex into Legions is not a side lane you want to be having, especially when Legions does stack that Seraph. So overall, the play was very successful for Dusty, but it was risky. Heaver failed his Alistair combo there. If he had landed it, it could have been a very different scenario. So they got out just, and as I'm saying that, Seraph's now fully stacked for Legions. He is going to be a threat in this side lane.
I do want to note that Coincidence's itemization here is showing us that he is not here to deny Shikari in a side lane. He wants to play purely for the team to deal with Sebex, as Legions is jumping onto Sebex, chunks him out really hard. The stand slide is used as he just shifts over the Emperor's Divine. A shutdown for Coincidence. Chelm has been zoned out of the pit for the moment, but a perfect kill for Dusty 22 seconds before Dragon spawns up. Jack Spectra building towards the wit's end as well, already able to cut through that Baron somewhat effectively. This second Dragon should be very, very quick for Dusty, and I don't think Munster are going to be able to contest it.
I think Munster can try force the Baron though, so Dusty need to keep an eye on them to a degree, but instead they're going to go for the mid priority. So this is Dragon for Dusty, slowing down that slow wing condition and potentially keeping it as an option for them. Ultimately, a very nice capitalization. We talked about how the Azir and the side lane into the cast is not ideal. Perfect utilization of the Shen to bring it in and execute him. They got a massive shutdown that unfortunately went onto the Shen, but even so, it makes him stronger. And it just gives you more time as well for Dusty. They're playing these wide map states really well. And Munster haven't really had an answer, although TP's coming in here. I'm not sure about this one from Dusty.
Yeah, Legions isn't actually about. He does have teleport for himself. Looks like they just wanted to keep Coincidence around in case they got dove onto. Teleport advantage still in favor of Dusty.
I think they were concerned about the Baron being started, and the Blue Trinket was just coming up and available, so they wanted to have him there in case the Baron had been started. Ultimately, it hadn't been, and it was kind of a little bit messy there from Dusty, but
they just altered that ward. They gave up the fact they were doing that.
I mean, that
Weaver's wall gets used in Legions.
Really stop them. Cheom can
And
get
just
there.
look for the AoE. Coincidence is coming forward with the taunt. That's going to be the Baron picked up. Munster, though, arc around inside this pit for the moment. Watch the taunt. In goes Hiva. Massive shuffle backwards. Jack Spectra still untouched for the moment, and Shikari's just going to get zoned away. Everybody else is jumping back over. Unforgiven looks to try and tidy up. Jack Spectra has to run away. Hasn't got Fiddle in his back, and Shikari looks to hunt down. Legions get shut down, and Munster are looking to chase. Fiddle's all alone, and Shikari continues to hunt him down. Jack's trying to get there in time to save his support. Jumps in with the blow to the Ruined King. Gets Bob back and finds the kill. Jack Spectra now onto Hiva, and Hiva has to run away. Fiddle can shield him up, can keep him alive for the moment. Unforgiven strafing forward, half health in for the moment, and Sevex is looking to get himself the mop up. The shields are there. Jack's got the speed up for the Whimsy. The Glitter lands. Unforgiven's looking for the Q, but Shell tanks it for the team. Dusty keep their AD carry alive, but Munster get Baron and get an inhibitor turret.
Such a messy fight there, and ultimately it's so close to be the clean ace for Munster, but Dusty managed to keep two alive, but they lose the fight and they lose the Baron. That was the perfect example of the ranges of Munster being a difficult issue to deal with, but Legions, he's looking for Sebex.
He's just going to chase him down with the home guard. Sebex has no ultimate, has nowhere to go. Legions, Shen ultimate to make sure he survives just about.
Very close, but does get it. And now looking towards this mid tower, but Wave going to get cleared out. However, we are looking at the replay, and this is evidence of the range issues. They have them trapped in a pit, but they can't approach the Azir Ezreal too threatening. And you can see Jack Spectra and Legions are unable to move in and use their shorter range, their high damage against these targets. And as soon as Munster realize they have a numbers advantage, they've chunked out these carries no longer a threat. They start to push out now. Shikari does overstep a little bit here. The polymorph there from Fiddle was beautiful. And then Jack Spectre with some fancy footwork to keep alive. It was a very elongated situation where they were close to going down. But ultimately, this was a hero play from the bot lane of Dusty to remedy a really awful situation for a team. Munster picked the perfect fight by using their ranges in that pit.
That was really, really good to watch there. Now, like you were saying earlier, though, I mean, first of all, the inhibitor's not down. But if it does go down, they can just use it as a tool for Jack Spectre to kind of farm. As long as the other inhibitors go down, he'll be able to deal with one wave of supers very effectively. Baron's still got a little bit left on it. So Munster may just look to try and crack open at least this tier 2 in the bot lane. Coincidence is the only one defending. Doesn't have the team with him, so this will go down.
I think the big thing that opened up from that, though, is the gold advantage now for Munster. They are significantly ahead. You've seen Unforgiven has a Death Dance in pocket. He's feeling a lot more confident. And again, these ranges are causing issues for Dusty. Weaver's Wall comes in to block off, and they're looking for this tower.
Yeah, should be able to pick this one up. They don't have Legions about. And the sacrifice is just going to be the turret. The Weaver's Wall now has timed out, but the wave's still pretty big. The Baron's still on, and Jack, he's strong, but I don't think he's feeling it yet. Hasn't got the Death Dance. And the inhib in the bot lane will go down. 50 seconds until this dragon spawns up. It's 2 apiece. Ocean Soul could be a deciding factor in this game. As they put up the Legacy of Shurima in the mid lane, giving Munster a nice place to hide underneath. 2 inhibitor turrets falling could be really detrimental to Dusty in this game. They are looking to crack it open. Legions jumps in onto Unforgiven, dodges out on a little bit here. True Shot Barrage is going to go a little bit wide as Dusty, they don't feel comfortable stepping up. This range, like you said, is just too much for them to deal with. And they lose 2 inhibitors.
They're not at the point where they can just brute force with the strength of the Vayne and the Casting. And until that point, they're just going to be held at bay by Munster. Munster have the gold lead. They're moving towards that 3rd dragon for themselves. And Dusty kind of just corralled in. Not much they can do. You can see Legions trying to farm up to that level 16.
It's just about going to hit it now.
Hits it now. So a lot of strength being given over the Casting here.
Dragon's already been started up. Spotted out. But I don't think Legions is going to be able to get over in time. I don't think he wants to go over, to be honest. Dusty don't have a wave to push with them, so they can't really actually take this tower. And this locked gold I was talking about is still on the map for Dusty.
They could look for this, but watch Heaver with the Hex Flash available. Shikari and Sebex both have TP. They could look to capitalize on this if they want.
Should be risky. Tower's going to go down mid lane.
Baron in a minute
up in a
15, and double super minion waves going to be pushing in on the bot side of the map. So that has to be dealt with. They do have Shen with the Titanic Hydra and the ult and teleport to get in. But it means that Shikari can push up here and look to threaten in this situation. He's got Vamp Scepter plus Death Dance for the sustain. He wins trades pretty handily against Coincidence. And Legions doesn't quite have TP yet, because when Legions has TP, they can potentially look to kill Shikari in the side lane and then both join at Baron. Until that's up, I think Shikari can go pretty heavily unchecked, because if anyone else comes down, the Baron will be forfeit in 35 seconds.
Jack Spectre got the buildings of his own Death Dance, but still a bit of a ways away for him. Looks like Munster are just going to brute force this top lane. Jack Spectre is off in the mid trying to deal with the wave, and now Legions gets headbutt pulled back, does have that Rift Walk, flashes away, gets the Stand United used on him, but it's interrupted by a hook shot from Shikari. So that's now the Coincidence ult down, Weaver's Wall gets used, and Dusty, they're looking to defend this one. They don't want to give this up as they're jumping in on Unforgiven. He gets stunned up instantly. Teleport's getting used and Sebex finds the kill. Heaver's going to take a lot from Jack Spectre, but they do find themselves a shutdown in response. Wild Growth is used and Jack's chasing into Sebex.
Jack's
He's
going
looking for another one. Maxwell goes down, but look inside the base. Shikari finds a kill onto Coincidence. Double kill for Legions.
I think the game plan is Lulu Vayne going for the Baron, Legions to hold Shikari off. With no ult available, Shikari shouldn't have kill pressure here onto the Casted-in. Looks like they're just going to go for the 2-man on the Baron. No one currently up other than Shikari, and his TP actually got cancelled there. I believe Coincidence cancelled his TP, and that's why Shikari answered with the solo kill.
This isn't that quick, though. Sebex up in 20 seconds, and that wood is a potential teleport spot for him.
When you're tanking the Baron, you deal half damage to it. So true damage obviously is negated by that, but Jack Spectre isn't doing as much as he could. Should be able to find this one, though, and I don't think Sebex can TP in here.
Not enough.
They get the Baron. True Shot's a little bit late. Doesn't hit Fiddle there. I'm going to see a replay of that fight. Ultimately, it was just a really good engage coming out from Shelm here. Unforgiven using both Flash and Arcane Shift. Only to go down to Legions. Legions stopwatches to buy time. And their focus comes on him, which allows Jack Spectre to push through this fight as Vaynes do. And just take target after target. Legions, Shelm, Jack Spectre all playing this absolutely beautifully.
Jack now moving on to his last item. Got that stopwatch. Almost field build onto Legions as well. Dusty have hit late game.
Death Dance is so nice on Vayne because it heals from your on-hit damage as well. Obviously, something like Bloodthirster only heals from your auto-attack damage, not your on-hit damage. The exception is Blade Rune King, which specifically has a thing that says this also heals from your on-hit damage. But the Wit's End damage, for example, or the Rage Blade, Death Dance syncs really well with those. So Jack Spectre feeling confident, feeling strong. The range may still be an issue, but if they can close that gap, they can decimate. And Legion's in the side lane, feeling confident. Level 18 on the cast in 4 items. He's pushing up.
He's got the ulti from Shen.
on him.
Weaver's Wall's going to get used. Looks for the Rift Walk. Teleport's actually thrown down. And Legions actually just forced everything out from Munster there. Coincidence holds his nerve and doesn't even pop the R. And now Legions looks to chase in. He's going to take a lot of damage on response, but Dusty now looking for Chelm. Jack pops the final hour. In goes the Stormbringer. Unforgiven's able to shift away. Shikari looks for the hook shot. Fizzle flashes over the wall to get away. Dusty do burn the flash, but they get control of the river for this dragon spawn. Fizzle takes a little bit of damage as Diva's going to take an auto attack over the wall. Coincidence still holding that ultimate and teleport up in the top lane, pushing away, making sure they aren't going to get anything else. All of the inhibitors have respawned for Dusty right now. And this is Ocean Soul for Munster, if they can get it.
They're definitely looking for it in this situation. Reset's coming in. Legion's going to TP. They know they need to fight this one. But Munster have vision control off the area. Legion's just charging in.
He's going straight onto Unforgiven. Gets the taunt off on the Shen as well. Goes Golden. Coincidence. Gets the taunt off onto Heaver, but that is it. Legion shifts over the wall. Comes back in onto the flank. Looking for Unforgiven. Gets the kill onto Stebex. He gets shuffled back, but Dusty are just advancing forward. Munster's health bars are very, very low, but same for Dusty right now. Jack Spectre gets a shield on. Trying to dodge away on some of these skill shots for the moment. It's Coincidence closing in, but look at Legion's on the flank. Gets the blue buff stolen away and is waiting for his opportune moment. Hex flash by Heaver, and he is out of there. This is the third dragon for Dusty.
The late game has been hit, and Legions is huge right now. 7-1 on a Kassadin, and able just to gap close any situation. We said the range was an issue, but when you have a dash every second, it no longer becomes a problem. Legions able to clean up on that fight, execute Sebex, and now Dusty feeling confident. They've stopped the Soul win condition. They're looking to push up here, maybe a bit overzealous, but they will back away. 2 minutes 50 on that Baron, 4 minutes 30 on Soul for either team. Dusty feeling confident with where they are in the game and actually back ahead in gold now.
If you're wondering why me and Orcs laughed in that, Gulborg posted in the Discord a picture of Fiddle flexing wearing a t-shirt saying pick me Lulu. Very appropriate right now because he is having a good game on the Lulu, making sure Jack Spectre is just able to navigate these fights perfectly. And both summoner spells up for him as well.
So Legion's ulted in with a stopwatch, and then he went in once again. And the second time he went in, he was able to survive specifically because of Fiddle. I mean, the Hextech ultimatum came down for Shikari, and still he managed to live that one out thanks to the support of this Lulu. And it's just so impactful at this point of the game. And it really feels like the scaling's been hit by Dusty. Munster need flawless team fighting to come out ahead in this one. They need to take out Jack Spectre or Legions, ideally both.
They do have good damage. It's not like Munster, like, completely fall off. They didn't have just, like, a hard early game comp. They still do have damage. Like you said, they still have range as well, but
the problem
Dusty
is...
have Vayne Kassadin. Like, it's so good late game.
In the mid game, the range was an issue, and also Munster hit their spikes. But now, the problem is, Sebex and Unforgiven, and even Maxlaw are struggling to deal damage to Legions and Jack Spectre because they're so mobile. Jack Spectre is dashing around these fights at just lightning speed. How are you supposed to hit a Mystic shot onto that as Forgiven? Like, yeah, you can potentially hit one, but with the tumbles as well, it's so hard. And Legions, he has a dash every second, so it's very difficult for Sebex to really find damage. You put your soldiers down, he's already ulted away from them. You put another soldier down, he's already cleared the gap, and it becomes very hard, very fast-paced for Munster to keep up with this. So yeah, the damage is there, but it's just...
It's hard to hit.
It's possible for them to get it off. Yeah, exactly.
I also, Jack Spectre with a Ghost as well, just to add to the amount of mobility that Dusty has on them.
He wasn't fast enough, yeah.
He's literally a speedy boy. His Legions actually looks to find Shikari. Shikari, you're going to lose a lot of health there. That is a very strong Kassadin.
This casting is just instantly having the flash. And we see last time for Legions actually going for the Oblivion Orb. So has the potential to turn this into a Morellonomicon if we do see a Ocean Soul come in. But I think it's just a big spike on that Oblivion Orb with not much magic resist on the enemy team. But now the hunting
going in. Unforgiven's gonna get stunned. They try to knock him back, but Legions launches into the fray. They are gonna find a shutdown though. Jack Spectre untouched for the moment. If the hook shot's gonna land, they have that wild growth to work with. Jack Spectre gets it popped onto him. The Weaver's Wall actually separates them from the base, and Coincidence is gonna fall. Jack's still alive. He has to make a 1v9 performance here. Shikari takes him down. Munster have done it. They're into the base. It's the ace, and this will be the game. Dusty bites off way too much, and Munster shut them down.
And I said it needs to be the flawless team fighting for Munster if they're going to bring this one out. And they found it. Legions dying without using the Zonyas or the Seraphs. And then it was all on Jack Spectre, and it wasn't enough. They took him down. They take the win, and they push Dusty down to the lower end of the playoffs.
That was such a good turnaround for Munster. It was looking dire. We were just highlighting how it was so hard to kill these Dusty members with the amount of mobility they've got, with the survivability from the Lulu. And it just fell apart. It just crumbled in that last team fight. And from the earlier shoves that Munster got, they were able to take the inhibitors. They were able to just have an open base, and it was such a clean close. Munster, what a turnaround. What a turnaround.
And the impact of that game is pretty massive, because prior to today, Dusty could have actually closed the gap with Tricked or Munster sitting at 5 points. After that loss, Dusty's highest finish, if everything goes perfectly for them, they cannot finish higher than 4th place in the group, just on the cusp of playoffs. And losing that game there means potentially if Barrage can actually beat them out tomorrow, I believe it is tomorrow. No, sorry, on Thursday.
Yep.
If Barrage can beat them out on Thursday, we could see Dusty being knocked out of playoffs altogether. So maximum finish of 4th, potentially being knocked out. Really rough for Dusty, because that game was so close. And it felt like they'd hit their scaling, and then that missed execution in the last fight. Munster playing it as well as they ever could expect to, and closing out. I mean, the fortitude to hold on for that one key moment when you see the likes of this Cassidin, level 18, almost full build, the Vayne as well, and still finding the window was huge. But by all means, it should never have gotten to that point. But Munster do pull out the bag.
That was a heartbreaking loss for Dusty, and for Munster, that was way too close for what they wanted. But with that, Munster were able to pull out the win versus Dusty and knock them out of the runnings. Now, guys, we're going to cut to a quick break, and when we're back, we'll have our analyst desk to break down that absolute massacre, that crazy, crazy game. We'll see you after the break.
Stay sweet summertime, sipping in a high. We caught a fever for 2. Go together like neon in the night. I know I'm better with you. I know that you see me the way that I am, floating on a feeling with no other plan. You make me feel good, lost in the moment. You make me feel good, hearts running wild. You make me feel good, love like I'm falling. Know that I'm all into you every time. You make me feel good. You make me feel good. Hearts running wild. You make me feel good. You make me feel good. Hearts running wild. You make me feel good. Here by my side, I'm in love with every little thing that you do. You're my paradise. As long as I got you, I know my sky will be blue. I know that you see me. I know you see me the way that I am, the way that I am, floating on a feeling with no other plan. You make me feel good, lost in the moment. You make me feel good, hearts running wild. You make me feel good, love like I'm falling. Know that I'm all into you every time. You make me feel good. You make me feel good, hearts running wild. You make me feel good. You make me feel good, hearts running wild. You make me feel good, lost in the moment. You make me feel good, hearts running wild. You make me feel good, love like I'm falling. Know that I'm all into you every time. You make me feel good. What's that strange face staring
it's not often that I say a team ran it down, but that last fight, a team actually just full on sprinted it into the fountain. Like, oh my word. Just like apparently gray's their favorite color, because that's exactly what they were going for with that final play. But look, I need to kind of dial back a little bit, because beyond that play, they were taking the fight to Munster. They were getting to that late game scaling. They just made that one critical error at the end, and I feel so bad for them. I really do, because I genuinely thought they'd won that game.
I think at the end of the day, when you're going into such a long game where the death timers are that long, I think all it takes is one tiny mistake. It was all in their court. It was all in Dusty's court, and you could see Munster was really struggling to find a way to close out the game. The goal was back and forth. The team fights were going back and forth. And at the end, it was Munster looking to close to the side lane. They were looking towards Shikari, ending the game, while Dusty was trying to push through another lane. And at the end, it was unfortunately Legion's making a mistake. And in all honesty, Munster were more than happy to see that happen.
So let's go ahead and look at the play, because it is our play of the game, because it frankly decided the game when it came down to it. I think Ox said something when we kicked out of game and we had a discussion between us and the casters, that it was just a hard spot to fight in, that he didn't have perfect information, didn't have perfect vision about what he was jumping into. He thought he could just get the assassination on the 80 carry, pops forward, isn't able to get the Zanyas, and then just instantly dies. And at this point, his team is fighting a man down. They're fighting in a location that they definitely should not be in. And I believe you guys said it, only Dusty could lose this game.
It's honestly been such a, it's, you know, I say it a lot of the times, and most of the time I want to be memeing about it, but it's just been a worrying trend coming out from Dusty. Sometimes it is only Dusty that could lose that game, and we've seen it before from the start of the first game against Trick, where they had everything they wanted to now. And honestly, you got to give it to both teams here. They came out with something different. They came out with a style where it was late game composition. They wanted to duke it out against each other, and it was honestly one of the more exciting games. But quite frankly, I was just happy Munster wasn't flipping it level one. I remember coming back with, did anything happen level one? Is it just normal lanes? And people were like, yeah, don't worry about it. I was like, all right, wow, this is a new Munster. They didn't do anything risky in the early game.
Guys, look, that was mind-blowing, that game. But I have one of the architects of the Munsters win with me, and you know what? I'm really happy, because it's the second time I get to chat to Hiva. So hey, Hiva, how are you?
I'm falling asleep. What's up?
You're falling asleep. That's why you went to get the coffee beforehand.
Yeah.
So talk to me first of all, Alistair. That was an early rotation for you. It's not something we see a lot of supports do. What do you think about Alistair? Do you think he's making a resurgence? Like, what was the thought process behind the pick?
I mean, it's Alistair in my hands, so I can just whip it out anytime, like any meta. So not a big problem, you know, just blind first rotation, blind pick Alistair. Like, can I get punished? Apparently not. So, but yeah, the buffs on Alistair have been pretty nice, and I don't know, I guess some Korean guy or something like figured out like that phase rush is actually like pretty nice on this champ, and with combination of X-Fest. So yeah, with the buffs and that rune build, it feels actually nice to play.
That's good. To be fair, it's one of those picks that I do associate with you alongside Thresh. You know, throughout your career, I've always kind of thought of you as like the Alistair Thresh guy. So, you know, nice to see you back on a champion that you've played so much in the past. That game was definitely. We have a saying in English. I don't know if you've heard it before. We call it squeaky bum time. It literally means like you're on the edge of your seat, basically. So were you worried you'd let that game go too long? Like, were you genuinely worried in game that you might have let it go too long?
I mean, yeah, like I said before, like I was falling asleep because like we were literally not doing anything. Like we were not getting anything done. Like sure, we had a lot of control, but we just did nothing. And at some point, like, we cannot like win. But our only hope is like Shikari on Camille like ends the game on side lane when enemies go mid or something like this. But I guess enemy Kassadin got bored as well and decided to just go. I don't know. Thank you.
We had a good laugh at that play, to be fair. It was definitely something that tickled the casting team. It's pretty likely that, or at least it could be likely that you're facing up against XL in the first round of the playoffs. How do you feel about that matchup specifically?
I mean, if you play like this, then I'm a bit worried. Like, I know we can do so much more and play so much better. Like, just look for more plays and just play better League of Legends overall. But I don't know, lately, I guess we just suck. Or like, looking from this game, like, but if we get back to our form, you know, like finals, anything, like, come at us, you know, easy.
I think last time I spoke to you, you talked about like the problem that you were having as a team is being more decisive. And obviously you talked a little bit about this game where you weren't able to do anything. But do you feel there are parts of the game where you're being more decisive now? Like, do you feel like you are being a bit more proactive in certain areas?
I mean, from this game, not really. Like, I literally think we were just chilling this game. Like, after a certain point, we just chilled, you know? And I guess that gets you a win, so great, good for us. Yay!
Oh, Hiva, do you know what, mate? You're one of my favorite people to interview. You really are. Look, I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna let you go. Enjoy your coffee, and I hope you have a good evening.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Oh my! It's actually cracking me up. Oh my word!
Honestly, from his interview, I kind of got a little bit of a glimpse of doubt about how they have been playing as a team, how they have gelled together, how they have progressed through the NLC. Because every time there is this doubt of, we had this, but we didn't do anything. We had the lead, we didn't push hard enough. We had the control, but we had nothing to do with it. So how do these questions get answered? How do you feed this back into your team? And who's the one that's leading you forward? Because I know that Maxler is the guy, he is the voice of Munster. And if he's not able to give you the answers quick enough, then it doesn't matter if the Munster lineup is full of talented people, it's just always going to be the same mediocre reactions that will never get you the lead you need.
I kind of like having these interviews with Hiva every time just because he's so honest. A lot of interviewers will be like, yeah, I'm confident we can do this or that. But he's literally like, this was really bad from us. We had the same issue last week. We do the same issue today. And we got lucky. Like, that is literally the thing that's coming out from him. They started chilling. And honestly, he is saying they know they have a peak. They know if they're at their best, they can still come at them. But right now, they're not at their best, and he also acknowledges that. This is why I admire about Team Hiva and just Munster Rugby Gaming. They know they have issues, and they just play right into it. And I hope they can fix it, because they are acknowledgeable of their issues, but it just seems like somehow, because we had the same issues last week, they're not getting fixed.
No, look, and sometimes the game doesn't present you with the opportunities, and sometimes it doesn't translate from scrims or practice or whatever. But I agree with you. I think that he was enthusiastic, refreshing, because he just kind of tells it how it is, and that's an interesting perspective to hear from a team, because you don't always get that insider kind of thought process. Let's wind down. That I had too much fun. It was just too funny. Let's go over to the highlights from today. Let's have a look at what happened. We obviously didn't just have this match. We've had 4 matches today. We'll kick things off with that first game, Riddle versus Nordavind, and it really is Riddle reborn right now.
Yeah, I think it's as Senkux put it in his interview, that Group A seems to have something to say about Group B constantly being the powerhouse group in a lot of the discussion, saying that Group A is stronger, and Riddle are one of the teams that are here to put that one on the map.
But I also think that there is a sentiment is what he's saying, because these games we've been seeing today, I sometimes, and we've talked about this, a team will just show up and we will say, wow, that was really well played, and I really hope that they can continue this upswing, but the next week they just won't. And this is why I'm worried going into playoffs, because teams seem so shaky. And yeah, you all hate this word, but consistency, God's sake, like, we really need some of these teams to start showing up. I believe BTXL is a team that is slowly showing it. I believe that Munster Rugby Gaming is a team that's further away from doing it, but they took a step in the right direction today. Even though they weren't able to close out the game in time, obviously they get the lucky win. But I think there's hope.
And honestly, I feel like this was actually hope for Godsend. They're on the chase to get that last spawn. They actually snatch it off of Ents. If I'm not wrong, they're actually tied right now. So we are one breath before the finish line, and this counted so much for Godsend. And not only do they get a win, but they do actually get a decisive win with great performances. They play good as a team all together, and they managed to beat an Ents that on paper we thought was much stronger.
I just felt like that was one of the cleanest Bard performances we've ever seen. Shout out to Peterson on that Bard. That was beautiful. And then you have this magnificent series, one of the most painful throws that I've seen in quite a bit. This game had quadra kills, it had Barons, it had 5-man pulverizes, it had intentionally running it down with Kassadin jumping into 5 people. It had it all.
I mean, we only missed that Soul, we missed the Elder, but everything outside of that, like, we had it. And that's the most crazy thing. This game went on for so long, and none of the teams even secured the Ocean Soul. It was just there all the time.
Well, from all of that and all of our plays of the matches, we do have a play of the day, I believe, Trouble. And you guys have selected one of those replays to be our play of the day, Trouble. Why don't we have a look at it?
Honestly, I could have chosen any single team fight that happened in our last game, Dusty versus Munster Rugby Gaming. But honestly, thank you so much for giving me this replay. Sebex goes huge here. Munster is behind, and guess what? The Annie Prodigy now bringing in close to a cinema from your house on the Azir this time, manages to get the quadra kill, and this is where Munster managed to turn this game around. It was actually, thank you. Honestly, thank you so much, production, for giving me this replay. I was head over heels for that Azir play. I felt like Sebex completely pulled Munster out of a hole, and had he not gotten that quadra kill there were too many kills going over to Dust. I think would have been a really, really different game.
Yeah, but just imagine losing a game where you have a Vayne that is so far ahead at that point. Yeah. And if you just don't have a quadra kill on an Azir, they're not able to stall out the game. They're not, that game was wild. I still can't get over it.
I'm so tired.
that game absolutely was wild. I'm drained of all energy. Guys, let's have a look at the standings. We can take a look at where we sit today. We can talk a little bit about the upcoming games, what they're going to mean. XL right now, one more win would secure them first in this group, absolutely. But Riddle obviously are hot on their heels. We're going to see that transpire over the next few days. Nordavind and Ents pretty close, but most importantly, Ents and Godsend exactly aligned. They are head-to-head equal. They are score equal, and both of their upcoming games are going to be incredibly important. Ents, unfortunately, they have to take on BTXL. Godsend will have Nordavind, which by the standings is going to be an easier task for not Godsend, but obviously let's not count our chickens before they've hatched. Move over to Division B. And we had that one game here from Munster that puts them up closer towards Fnatic. They're trying to secure that second seed spot. Fnatic, as we know, already secured into first. And then obviously Dusty, Tricked, they are still battling it out, as well as Barrage, who are still not absolutely out of the running here with that Dusty loss. Barrage can still chase for that fourth spot in this group. So lots to play for over the coming days, guys. Lots and lots. And speaking of the coming days, we have 2 more days this week. We have 3 days of the NLC back-to-back to finish out our regular season games. And tomorrow, we're going to be kicking things off with Tricks versus Fnatic. We're going to have Barrage versus M&M, Riddle versus Singularity, and Nordavind versus Godsend, that all-important match for the Godsend roster. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring today, this clown fiesta of a day, to a close. And we will see you guys tomorrow.